What's going on, you guys? It is your boy, the American F1 fan, Eric Ringel here, and Drive to Survive is getting closer and closer for Season 5. It should be releasing here, gosh, probably right after the first of the year, but I was thinking to myself, what I would consider for storylines going into Season 5 of Drive to Survive. Now, typically from Netflix, we get these over-sensationalized, feuds and, kind of overblown stories and feuds within teams. So I thought, why not come up with my top 9 ideas for storylines that can be used for Netflix's Drive to Survive for the 2022 season. So let's get on to this list of those 9 storyline ideas. So now these 9 ideas are not in any particular order. They're just, ideas that I was spitballing and was writing down as I was thinking of them. And the first one is covering the BAHRAIN Grand Prix. Now, when we first saw this race, we saw Red Bull was very close, Ferrari was really close, Mercedes was kind of close. Haas surprised everybody. Alfa Romeo surprised everybody. But I think, the way that Netflix likes to do things with Drive to Survive, I think they are going to try to overblow this first episode and talk about the fall of Red Bull, with a question mark behind it. Is this, Red Bull finally falling away from the top of the field? Which is very understandable when you have literally Max Verstappen, 2 to 3 laps from the end of the race, his engine lets go. Sergio Perez's seizes up and he spins going into turn 1. I think there were a lot of us of fans of Formula 1 that were like, oh God, like, is this what Red Bull's going to be doing all throughout the season? And I think not only just that from the Bahrain Grand Prix, but you had, Kevin Magnussen making his return and scoring a top 5 finish in Bahrain. You had Charles Leclerc getting his first victory of the season in what looked like, could potentially be a dominating performance from Charles Leclerc. So I think Bahrain is a great way to start out for Netflix's Drive to Survive. And really, they're going to play up the drama. So we all have a feeling that, potentially they're going to try to play up, the Red Bulls, with the double DNF in Bahrain. Now, for my number 2 storyline, this is one of those ones I don't think we're going to see. But I think if Netflix, Drive to Survive, and, Formula 1 in general, kind of want to get the story of the full season out there, Saudi Arabia needs to be covered next, and really the race that shouldn't have been. I mean, when we go back and look at Saudi Arabia, there were, leading up to the race, there was talks of the bombings that were occurring, not within a couple miles of the racetrack, burning oil. Then once we got into the race weekend, the constant threats of, potential bombings again near the racetrack or, at the racetrack in general. And just the overnights of, the drivers and the team principals and, just going back and forth trying to debate on whether the race should have ever gone ahead, and then we get into qualifying and have the horrific accident that we saw from Mick Schumacher, which was kind of one of those, it was an omen that said, maybe we shouldn't be racing here, but, the race still ends up going ahead and it wasn't exactly as exciting as it could have been. So I think Formula 1 needs to cover that weekend properly as far as what the drivers went through in their meetings, what the team principals went through, and, just kind of talk to some of the drivers about what they were thinking when Saudi Arabia was, being discussed as to whether or not the race was actually going to go ahead. My number 3 has got to be Silverstone with GUANYU'S, with the horrific looking, opening lap crash. We know Netflix likes to really, overplay some of these things, and it's going to be no different with Zhou Guanyu, playing the opening lap crash that he had, but also Carlos Sainz bucking the Ferrari strategy that they wanted him to perform, where we got the ever famous quote, "Stop inventing." I think that race in and of itself, it proved Carlos Sainz is, the driver that Ferrari signed him up to be. And, he was able to put a really good result out there. Charles still ended up getting a decent result out of this race. So let's not say that, Carlos may have screwed over Charles. Like, Carlos deserved this race probably more than Charles did. But I think it was kind of that beginning stages of where you could see, and even some parts in the early parts of the season, you could see Ferrari's strategy was, their strategies were just sometimes really bonkers. And, I think it was no different here that, they pitted one guy but didn't pit the other, and then wanted one guy to hold up the other guy hold up the rest of the field. And I think this was kind of that moment where you were like, God, Ferrari just is trying to blow this thing. So I really would love to see the coverage from Silverstone. Number 4 for me is, and this is kind of a playoff of number 3 with Silverstone, is Ferrari and Mattia Binotto versus actually putting out good strategies. And I think all throughout the season, we saw it over and over and over again that Ferrari was almost overthinking things or trying to overcomplicate things. And, we saw in their strategies, we saw how many times it, really ruined races for Ferrari. And, it goes all into the lead of, eventually Ferrari deciding that Mattia doesn't need to be the team principal anymore. And, really play up the fact that, just his strategy calls just really hurt the team in the long run. And I mean, I think number 5 is about as no-brainer as you could possibly get. The Sebastian Vettel goodbye, and as I put it, for now. Because, yes, Sebastian has retired from Formula One for right now, but as we've seen in the past with Kimi Räikkönen and Fernando Alonso, both guys took, a 2-3 year sabbatical from Formula One, but then got that bug again. And Sebastian, I don't feel is much different than those guys. And, we could definitely see, Sebastian Vettel come back, maybe make one more good run against Lewis, or, maybe try to make one more good run at winning a driver's championship. And so, but I think with all the special things that F1 did throughout the season for Sebastian Vettel, including the very last race of the season in Abu Dhabi, I think you have to cover Sebastian Vettel's retirement from this season. Number 6 for me is Brazil and Red Bull civil war, with the fact that in the sprint race, Max Verstappen doesn't let Sergio Perez through, and then throws out the ever-blanketing statement of, I've already told you that I was not going to do this, and I've already given you my reasons. And so it started this S-storm in Formula One and through fans. And, it really made it. I know there were a lot of people that, really could not stand the fact that, Max would do something like this, when Sergio was willing to help him out all throughout the season. So, to get, Sergio Perez a potential second place in the driver's standings, and for Max not to, try to help him out in any way, it really, spelled signs of a potential civil war with the team. And, it going into 2023, is this, going to be, a sign of things to come? And then, I mean, if we're talking about Brazil, I think we have to talk about qualifying for the sprint race. And, Kevin Magnussen and Haas getting their first pole in Formula One. So I think that's going to be a really good feel-good story within Drive to Survive. So I really hope that they cover that. And then obviously you have to cover Ferrari's bonehead move with Charles Leclerc and putting him out on the intermediate tires before the rain even started falling. Another storyline to cover this for Drive to Survive, I think, this year would be Alpine and their reliability issues, potentially chasing away Fernando Alonso from re-signing with the team for the 2023 season. I mean, we saw, especially in the second half of the season, the amount of times that the reliability caught up with Fernando Alonso, either blew the engine, had problems with the gearbox, whatever the case may have been, and it made him have to retire from races. And the fact that, at the tail end of the season, when you really need points and you're fighting for basically fourth position in the Constructors' Championship, and your reliability is that crap, we have to wonder, I know Alpine wonders, but I don't think any of us do, why Fernando didn't re-sign with the team going into the 2023 season. I think number 8 is also one of those no-brainers, in the Red Bull dominance in the second half of the season. It was, going into summer break, we heard from Ferrari that, we can go into the second half of the season and, win just about every race. And, it was kind of that, nail in the coffin for Ferrari when they made that statement, and just Red Bull went on one of these just gigantic runs in the second half of the season and just showed off its dominance. And, I gotta say, Red Bull, really put it to the rest of the Formula One field. So I think, just showing throughout that second half of the season what Red Bull was able to do to dominate the F1 field, I think needs to be covered. And my number 9, this one is kind of a weird one, but I think it's going to get covered a little bit, and it's the Alpine versus McLaren when it comes to Oscar Piastri. So we all knew that Oscar was primed and ready for a seat for 2023. Now, when Fernando Alonso said that he wasn't going to re-sign with Alpine, there was talks that Oscar Piastri, since Fernando wasn't coming back, was now going to get the seat because of a contract that he had with Alpine. Then McLaren says, "Oh, well, we've signed Oscar Piastri to a multi-year deal. He's going to be for racing for us." And just the saga that went on for weeks between Alpine and McLaren, whose contract was legal, whose wasn't, who was Oscar going to race for in 2023? Was it going to be Alpine? Was it going to be McLaren? I think that's going to be such a great way to, kind of find out some of the inner workings of what, was going on in both teams, and what they believed was going to happen and what they believed should have happened. So, and then talking to Oscar himself and kind of finding out the real reasons why he didn't want to race at Alpine going into 2023 and why he wanted to race with McLaren. But guys, let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. What are some storylines from the 2022 season that you would love to see covered from Drive to Survive this season, Season 5? Guys, let me know that in the comment section down below, guys. And if you guys like this video, slap a like on it for me so it gets it out there to more and more Formula One fans, and they can see some of the storylines that may be coming in Drive to Survive. And guys, as always, if you are new to this channel, please subscribe if you guys are new for more daily and weekly Formula One content as we get closer and closer to the 2023 season officially beginning with testing, and I'm so looking forward to it. But guys, subscribe if you're new. And guys, Merry Christmas from me, my family, to yours. Guys, enjoy the holidays. Enjoy it with your family. But guys, thank you so much for watching. Guys, for the American F1 fan, I'm Eric Ringel, saying Merry Christmas.